I'm pleased to have Pamela come and share with us, and she's open to questions and as she goes along.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to you about CLIO and how you can use it to benefit your project. So again, my name is Pam Curtin. I am an AmeriCorps member with CLIO, which is a project based out of Marshall University, and I'm based out of Morgantown. I did my master's in public history at WVU, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania. So I'm excited to be talking to you today about this, this platform and the way that you can use it for your project. So what is CLIO? So CLIO is a nonprofit website and mobile app that's, again, developed by Marshall University, a history professor there, who wanted to have an app that you can use to find historic and cultural sites. And so this picks up your GPS coordinates and links you to nearby cultural and historical sites. And so this is an interactive platform and a crowdsourced platform as well. And we'll get into that shortly. So here's just a little bit about some screenshots of what it looks like. After the presentation, I can also pull up the website. We can look at it live as well. So again, it's both a mobile app and a website. They're both synced together. And CLIO consists of individual CLIO entries, which are essentially little biographies of a site. So you have a title, a short little description at the top, photographs, a longer text section that's about 4 to 6 paragraphs, as well as images, videos, links. You can connect to other sites and resources as well. And right now we have about 30,000 of them from across the United States, and this is growing all the time because, again, it's a collaborative crowdsourced project. So CLIO is similar to some other platforms that are already out there. It fits into a broader context of other websites and apps that you may be familiar with. So how is CLIO different? I think this is kind of a nice way to describe what CLIO is. So it's shorter than and a little bit more concise than something like Wikipedia, which has a lot of information, fantastic information at times, but can sometimes would be a lot for scrolling through while you're walking around town and want to get just a nice overview of a site. There's also some other projects like the Historical Marker Database, History Pin. Those are other historical-based platforms, but sometimes not always providing enough information. Sometimes, for example, the Historical Marker Database is more of a transcription of what's actually on the marker, and CLIO allows us to go into a little bit more detail, or sometimes it's limited in scope. We have historic markers, but we also have other resources as well. What's great about CLIO is that because it's GPS enabled, you're able to sometimes find sites that you weren't originally looking for. So there's a component of spontaneous discovery that you can pull up the app and you can find sites that are near you that you may not have previously known were there. So that's a great way to drive people who may not be specifically searching for your site but can find it through the app. It's kind of functions like Google Maps. We actually are integrated with Google Maps, and so some of those maps at the beginning that you saw had the Google Maps portion, and also Google Street View, if that's something that is available to you. But we don't have Sheets and Starbucks in CLIO, so we're limited to just the cultural historical significance. Maybe the first Starbucks we would have in there, but we wouldn't drive you to some of those other sites. And it's different from custom-built apps as well. So these custom-built apps that are created just for you can be a great way to create something specifically designed for your project, but can sometimes have a pretty hefty price tag. What's nice about CLIO is that it is free and will always be free. We don't have any advertisements. There's no pay an extra fee and you get these extra benefits. Everything in CLIO is free to you, and it's also a national organization. So when somebody downloads the app, they will not only have access to Romney's history, but they'll have access to everywhere in the United States and territories. So it's a nice way to also incentivize people who want to possibly download the app. So again, here's just another screenshot of what the website looks like when you search for a specific site. So say I'm searching for the city of Pittsburgh. It'll bring up some historic sites that are nearby in the list on the left. And it'll also bring up CLIO tours, which we'll talk about shortly as well. And so then again, it's linked to specific locations. And so you can click on individual numbers and that will bring up the entry as well, or you can see it in a list view. It's kind of customizable to however you would like to search for something. So again, an individual CLIO entry, a single entry about a site, consists of a couple of different things. The location, so the physical GPS coordinates or address that this site is located with. Some text components, like the short overview, the longer backstory, a section of sources, and links as well, and then of course images, and we can talk more about what some of those are shortly. So all of these components work together to create a single CLIO entry. So a nice way to visualize what kind of entries are there. This is a nice way to visualize the types of entries that you can possibly work in. We categorize them in three different groups. Historic sites, monuments, landmarks, and public art are under one umbrella. So those are places that have some sort of historical significance. The museums, galleries, and archives are institutions, perhaps about history and culture. And then our time capsule entries are special entries that are focused on lost places. So this building used to be here. You can create a CLIO entry on that. Or it can be a moment in time, like a historical event. So these are the different types of categories that you can put into your CLIO entries. So we'll take a look at a couple of examples. So here are some examples of historic sites. You could have a historic building like Woodward Hall at WVU. So tell the history of how it was constructed, what its use was, in addition to the National Register of Historic Places. You can have memorials, like the Vietnam Women's Memorial, where you actually go into the history of how that memorial came to be and its significance to the public. And it's similar to that, you can also add historic markers, like this marker for the artist Mary Cassatt in Pittsburgh, where the CLIO entries for historic markers are really nice because you're able to really expand upon the text that is here. Add images, videos, perhaps links to other sources, and then tell not only about the history of Mary Cassatt, but how this marker came to be. Why did they decide to create a marker at this certain time and place it in this location? So then you also have historic institutions, so museums, archives, libraries. You can add these into CLIO as well. So sometimes there's a little bit of overlap between historic sites and museums. A lot of museums are in historic buildings, so you can kind of use your own discretion and figure out how you want to categorize it. So for example, the All Center of Local History is a small genealogical center in Morgantown, but it's also a historic house. So when I worked on the CLIO entry for this one, I talked not only about what's in the All Center and what researchers can find there, but a little bit about the family that used to live in this house and how it fits into Morgantown's history. And then you can also add other sites as well. For example, this is the Hillwood Estate in Washington, D.C., which is not only a historic mansion, but they also have gardens, some different museums on the property. So you can create an entry for that entire site or for individual buildings in that site as well. And then we have our time capsule entries. And I find these really compelling because it's a great way to sort of reconstruct the landscape that isn't there anymore. For example, historic moments in time, like marches, sit-ins, speeches, military activities. Sometimes we don't have any other physical manifestation that this event happened here, but you can add it into CLIO, like this Children's March Against Segregation in 1963. And it's also nice for properties that are no longer there, where you can tell the history of a site, how it came to be, and then perhaps how it was lost to time, like Old Mountaineer Field at WVU. There's a memorial there, a little marker that tells about the history, but we don't really get a sense of pictures, videos. We can add that into CLIO and create a really compelling entry that connects you to that site when you're actually standing there. And I'll also have time to answer questions at the end, so feel free to ask any questions. So, in addition to this, it's nice to kind of think about CLIO within what I call the core principles. What are the values that we have, and how are we different from other organizations and platforms that are out there? So, again, to reiterate that CLIO interprets historically and culturally significant sites, so we focus on history and culture. It consists of original objective work and references credible sources. So CLIO is developed by a history professor at Marshall. I have a background in history, and so we are really passionate about ensuring that CLIO entries are well researched and that we cite credible sources, and that we're writing original pieces. So instead of copying and pasting something from an existing website, we want to write something original. And that's helpful for not only the integrity of the entry, but it's actually really helpful for things like your site appearing in Google. Having original content online is a great way to have Google essentially like what you're doing. Addition to that, we are really focused on storytelling, and it's not only through text, but it's through images, primary and secondary sources, and links to related content. So if you have a website, you can, for your project, you can link your website in CLIO. If you have other sources, you can link in there as well. And CLIO is also collaborative. So it consists of thousands of people that have individual accounts that can go in and create entries, but you can also edit entries as well. So it's constantly being improved and constantly working towards being something that will be able to tell a really compelling story. So I'll just give a quick rundown of the different components of a CLIO entry, and again, we can pull up the website later and you can get a sense of how it actually looks all together. But the CLIO entry starts with what's called the overview. It's right underneath the title, and this is essentially your bite-sized who, what, when, where, why of the site. So somebody doesn't have to read a lot of paragraphs. They should be able to read these couple of sentences and get a sense of what the entry is about. So this one is focusing on the District of Columbia War Memorial in Washington, D.C. It's the only locally focused memorial on the National Mall. And so we provide the date of when it was built, who the memorial is commemorating. Some notes about the architecture. It's got the neoclassical architecture, so it's really distinct. It's also a functional bandstand, so we provide some little pieces of information that are unique to the site. We also talk about the site today, so now it's owned by the National Park Service and was recently restored, and any other sort of really significant part of this entry. It's nice to put that into the overview as well, like the fact that this is the only locally focused memorial on the National Mall. It's nice to put that in the overview. Someone can read this and get a nice sense of what this memorial is about. But of course we have a lot more to say than just those few sentences. So that's where our backstory comes in. And this is usually between 4 to 6 paragraphs, anywhere 500 to 1,000 words. It depends on the site and the story that you're telling. This is just a little snippet. And this is where you're going to go into a lot more detail, explain the site and its history, and tell a rich and compelling story about your entry. And of course, the storytelling can also really occur with images as well. So you can have images that are photographs, modern photographs or historic photographs. It can be maps, drawings, even images of artifacts that are significant to the site, you can add them into the individual CLIO entry. And then your image captions are a nice place to put information that you really want to drive home to your audience, or a little fun fact that perhaps didn't fit into the larger narrative, but could fit into an image caption. These are pretty short, but people like to read image captions. If you've ever flipped through a magazine or a newspaper, our eyes like to go to those image captions, so that can be a nice place to put some important information. And then, of course, we have our sources. We have a citation helper actually built into CLIO so that you can enter in all your information into this form, and it actually creates the citation for you. So you can use footnotes and then individual citations for those sources. And again, we really emphasize having credible sources, and so things that have been published. For example, this entry cites the National Park Service, the Historic American Building Survey, and some other books that are related to the history of this site, and sometimes even news articles that are relevant to some modern happenings related to the site. You can include in there as well. And then at the very bottom of the entry are your links, and this is where you can drive people to continue exploring. We really hope that CLIO is the starting point for their exploration of this history, and so if you have books or websites or videos that you want to send people to, the links are a really great place to do that. You can even send people to other CLIO entries. So for example, this one about the DC War Memorial, it played, John Philip Sousa played the Stars and Stripes Forever with his band, and we don't have a video of that actually taking place when the memorial was dedicated, but we do have a military band performing this song, and so we put this into the entry so you could stand there, listen to the music as you're looking at the entry. And also some other books, like there's a great book about developing the memorials on the National Mall. So it's a little bit bigger in scope, but if somebody's interested in this topic, you could send them to that book and they could learn a lot more. So again, all of these components are working together to create a single CLIO entry and to tell your story. So how can you use CLIO? There are a couple of things that you can use CLIO for. This is a great way to contextualize your site, perhaps reclaim significance. So whereas a historic building may not be, fit the significance of the National Register or Wikipedia and the standards that they have, we can put them into CLIO as long as it has a story to tell. It should be able to fit there. And it can also inspire visits to historic and cultural sites. So again, because it's GPS enabled, you can easily find sites that you weren't looking for, and it has a lot of tourism opportunities, and this is a great practical application for it. So when you're working in CLIO entries, there's really two things that you can do. You can either create a brand new entry, so one that is not in CLIO at all, or you can edit and expand an existing entry. And so, again, if we look at the website afterward, there are some historic sites in Romney that are in CLIO, but some of them are a bit brief, and sometimes there's even things like grammatical mistakes that we could continue to improve, or maybe there's just one photograph and you could add even more photographs. So editing and expanding is a great way to continue working on those entries and to continue fleshing out what's already there. And then what you can do is, once you have the entries in CLIO and they're published, you can string them together to create CLIO tours, and this is a really great practical application as well, because now you're able to tell a story about how different sites work together and the stories that they tell. So our CLIO tours are usually linked together by some common topic or theme, and we unofficially break them down into two groups: tours, which are short and walkable, so something that you could do in an afternoon, or you can have longer heritage trails, which may span an entire state or multiple states. And you might not actually physically go on those CLIO tours, but you could do the CLIO tour online, or you can do it on your phone. And it has a great educational application. So you're able to tell a story of multiple sites that are working together. So this is a CLIO tour that was created by students and their professor at the University of Richmond, and it's a walking tour of their campus. So it goes to historic halls that are on campus, a historic church, a science center, and it's easily something that you could do in an afternoon. Now for other examples, just so you can visualize what you could do with a CLIO tour. So this is one that's the highlights of the National Mall. So this is going to go through this different Smithsonian museums, maybe some different monuments and memorials, other historic places that are there. So somebody that's visiting here might want to visit all of these sites, and they can go through each of the sites in CLIO. You could, instead of thinking in terms of just geography, you could also think thematically as well. So this is a tour of historic Broadway and theaters in New York. So somebody that's coming to the city to see musicals would be able to follow these different, this little trail to find different theaters and learn about the history of them. So they're kind of grouped together nice and thematically. You could also think about actually tracing the movements of a group or of an individual. Like this is a tour of Price's raid from the Civil War. So this is generally the route that they would have taken and some of the different sites that they encountered along that raid. And so that's a nice way to sort of imagine how the military moved across this place. And again, here's an example of a larger heritage trail. This was created by students at WVU in conjunction with an art exhibit of women artists from West Virginia that was in Morgantown. So these are historic sites related to women in West Virginia. So we might not physically actually go on a tour like this, but the tour was able to bring these stories together, and we can actually take the tour online and learn about these people and the places that are significant to them. And creating the tours is really simple. Again, once you create the CLIO entries, creating the tours is as simple as clicking on the little green button, and it moves the entry over to the next column, and you can drag and drop to the order that you want those entries to be in. You save it, Google Maps creates the route for you, and there's a little section where you can put a description. So you could say this tour was created by the Romney Project, and maybe if you partnered with other groups, you could describe how you created the tour and what it's about. You save it, and you're pretty much done. So it's really simple and user-friendly. Again, I don't have a background in like computers and coding, but I'm able to use CLIO really easily. If you've ever filled out an online form online, it looks very similar to that. So again, once you have the CLIO entries, creating tours is really simple. So I'll also provide a couple of examples of different projects that you can do in relation to CLIO. So I like to think of CLIO as a way to create partnerships with other groups and to add another layer of interpretation. So if you have exhibits or perhaps other walking tours or programs that you do, CLIO is just another layer of interpretation to provide for the public. So this is a project that I worked on at WVU and I'm continuing to work on as part of my AmeriCorps service with CLIO. This is a history project of the Sunnyside neighborhood in Morgantown. This is a former industrial working class neighborhood that transitioned into a student-focused neighborhood. It is now undergoing a lot of revitalization, and so there are a lot of historic buildings that are being taken down and changed, and so there's a lot of focus on the history of this little space. And one of my professors was working on and my classmates really worked on documenting a lot of this history. So then earlier this year, when I was an AmeriCorps member, we had the opportunity to create an exhibit for the WVU libraries. And so not only did we create this exhibit that included historic photographs, but we then entered a lot of the research that we had into CLIO. And then we put we integrated the CLIO tours into the exhibit as well. So once you read about all the different sites that are in the exhibit, at the end you come to a panel where it talks about CLIO and says essentially if you want to continue exploring more and maybe want to go walk around the neighborhood and find different locations of sites, you can do so by going on these different CLIO tours. And so this is something that you can do if you create something like an exhibit, or if you have another program, creating a little exhibit label or a pamphlet to pass out to people to integrate it with other existing interpretation. And here's an example of one of the tours that we created. It's just a general walking tour of the neighborhood that you visit an old elementary school, an old German community center, a Catholic church that's no longer there. So now all those places that they learned about in the exhibit, they're now able to kind of try to understand what this neighborhood used to look like in the past. And out of that project and partnering with the WVU libraries, we're now working on creating an arts tour of Morgantown. So I know that you're all really interested in creating more public art for Romney, which is really exciting. And that's something that you could put into CLIO if you're interested. Morgantown has a lot of public art like statues, sculptures, murals, and we are creating a CLIO tour, or a series of CLIO tours, that talk about the history of those art pieces, and then also interpret some of the art as well, like different styles. Or for example, this Coca-Cola mural is a historic advertisement, and it was actually recently restored. So we talked about the restoration process and how you restore a historic mural, and a recent interest in restoring these kinds of sites. I'm also working with the Preston County Bicentennial. So if you have an event or a celebration that your project is connected to, you can integrate CLIO into that as well. So we're creating CLIO tours related to historic sites around the county, and this will be publicized in addition to the other events and programs that they're planning for the Bicentennial. So you'll be able to drive around the county and find sites, museums you can visit, or even things like historic history markers. And again, the markers are really nice to put into CLIO because you can really expand upon the marker and even tell why that marker came to be there and why they decided to place a marker in this place. So you might be thinking, where do we go next? How do we start taking these next steps to work in CLIO? And there are a couple things that you could possibly think about. I can help you with getting set up with an account, which I'll talk about shortly. But it's nice to kind of think about the sites that you might want to include in CLIO. So you can select sites that aren't there. You can take a look at the website and get a sense of what has been added, what isn't there, and then also identify existing entries that you want to improve, especially since you're all really familiar with the town's history and you probably know what kind of sources we can turn to. You'll probably see that the entries have room to grow. And so it's nice to identify those ones and think about how you can continue to improve those. And of course, because this research and writing can be a time-consuming process, you can also think about how to recruit and engage volunteers. So this is a nice way to get the community involved, or to think about how you might want to, maybe give Civil War themed entries to this person, or everybody has to create 2 or 5 entries by a certain date. It's nice to kind of schedule this into your projects the same way that you schedule, create benchmarks for other projects as well. And I can help with this too. It's really whatever works best for you and your project. You can also use CLIO to possibly apply for grants. And there are a number of organizations that we've worked with that have done that. Recently, there was a professor at the University of North Dakota who received a grant to create 200 to 300 CLIO entries about historic monuments in the West. And so you could, again, integrate this into other, bundle it into a grant application where you could hire interns or create videos to then put into CLIO photography projects, or just simply help fund the creation of these entries if you would like. It's a nice digital component, which is something that grant foundations sometimes really like to see. And then again, integrating into other programs and exhibits, we hope that this is just another layer of the interpretation that you do, and then you can share with your audience. So this, the CLIO tours and entries, you can add links to them in your websites or into individuals' museums' websites. You can create things like pamphlets or wrap cards that can help drive people to find the app or the website and be able to make use of it. I can help with advertising as well if you have questions about what works best for your organization too. But it's nice once you have the work, we want people to be able to find it. So it's good to think about marketing strategies for sharing these tours. I have one or two more little notes, and then we'll be able to discuss and you can ask questions. We do have special institutional accounts, so this can be a great way for you all to work together. So institutional accounts are different from the individual account that most people sign up for in a couple of ways. When an individual signs up, they are working completely individually, and when they edit or create a CLIO entry, CLIO is sent a message and we have to then approve the entry. So whenever somebody makes an edit, someone at CLIO knows it's not just automatically published. There is like a draft process where it does have to be approved by someone at CLIO. And what's nice about the institution accounts is that we essentially trust that historic and cultural institutions that are investing in CLIO can determine when an entry is ready to be published. So we give you the authority to do that. And you're also able to collaborate together. So essentially you have an administrator of the account and then a group login. So everybody can create entries together, and then your organization's name is credited as the author or editor of this entry. And so that's a nice way to collaborate. So here's kind of what the institution accounts look like from behind the scenes, where you have a couple of different, the draft entries that are still being worked on and still private, entries that are submitted for approval, and then the active entries are the ones that are published and ready to read on CLIO. And then when you go to approve an entry, you get a little button like this that you'll be able to click, and then essentially that makes the entry live for everybody to read. Lastly, we do have instructional videos on YouTube, which are really nice. My colleague in Charleston, who worked in the film industry, created them, and they walk you through the whole process of how you go in, entering your location, how you write the overview and the backstory, how you create the tour. So these are really nice resources. They're pretty short and easy to follow, and they're linked in the website, but they're also on our YouTube channel as well. So this is, I find that instructional videos are really helpful whenever I'm trying to learn a new tool, and so hopefully you can find these helpful as well. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and talking further. This is the website. It's theclio.com and my email address. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, when you're reachable for helping out, you just go to this website?
Yes, or you can contact me directly too. I have some business cards that I can pass out. And once you sign up for the institution account, if that's what you decide to do, you will also get a message from Dr. Trowbridge, who's the founder of CLIO, and he oversees the whole project. He'll provide you with more information, step-by-step instructions about how to set up those accounts as well.
Now, do you currently have anyone, I mean, part of what we're doing here in the murals and things like that as well, it's also geocaching and something like that. Are you familiar with anyone that's already linked a geocaching process into leading them to historical events? I mean, as part of that overall theme? Does it work?
Like with geocaching specifically,
Yeah.
I know the National Park Service does some geocaching. I'm not too familiar with how it's set up.
Right.
But you could certainly link in CLIO entries for people to go find geocaches is another way to keep
But you do
exploring
get the
the
GPS
history.
coordinates, right?
With the entries?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that what you need?
Would that help? Would that work with your vision?
Yeah, I mean, you could, because that's how you find them with the coordinates,
Yeah.
so. I guess technically,
You could tie it in.
you could tie it in somehow.
Possibly, yes. I know there are some just geocaching specific apps and platforms.
Yeah, I mean, those are gonna tell you exactly, like when I create the ones for us, it'll be on geocaching.com.
Okay.
And it'll give you a description of, you know, what the place is.
So that's something we would add as a link to sources or something?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, you could maybe add some sort of a link in CLIO
Yeah.
to geocaching.com.
Gotcha.
So, you know, let people know that there's geocaches for Romney.
So if you hide a geocache by a museum, you could link to the CLIO entry about the museum and what you could find there, but then also a separate geocaching entry, I guess, or not in CLIO, but you could read more about the geocache in their app. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with how that's been done before, but I think it has a lot of opportunity, and that's something that's really popular and fun for people to do, so it's nice to offer.
Yeah, because even though the coordinates are in there, they're still going to need something to lead them to.
Right.
The geocaching app actually has a compass to lead you to those coordinates.
Very cool. Make it more fun.
Do you have other questions? There's a lot of information, so.
Are you on the website?
Pardon?
Are you on the website?
Oh, I can certainly pull up the website.
Right.
The app pulled up 40 different locations within 50 miles of us right now. Not all of them are in Raleigh. 40 of them within 50 miles.
It's like historic.
They're historic things. There's about 8 or so that are in Raleigh.
So this is what the website looks like. Once you first log on, it'll ask you your internet browser will ask you, do you want to find your location? And you can click yes, and then it will bring up these different entries. So these are all entries that are nearby, and you can click on them individually, or you can see a list of them down here.
And does it identify who actually created that particular site?
It does, yeah.
Because I was
At the
gonna,
bottom it does, yeah.
because I was gonna ask you a question. You talked about going back and editing them.
Yes.
But if it's an individual site, you would need the permission of the editor in order to edit it, or?
You actually wouldn't, no, so you can just go in and edit it. This is how a lot of crowdsourced projects works, even like Wikipedia. You don't have to get permission from the original creator to work on the entry.
Oh, really?
You can just create and edit, because ultimately anybody that's editing these entries should be making them better and improving them. So there have been entries that I've created that then people have come in and added more pictures, or have added more sources, or even added and expanded upon what I've written, and that only makes them better.
But then somebody in CLIO has to approve that before it gets.
I was gonna say,
posted.
somebody checks the edit too, right?
Yes, we do. And sometimes things slip through only because we can't fact check everything, and so that's where having volunteers and participants is really helpful, because then they can come in and really, they know the history best, and they'll be able to make the entry the best that it can be.
So what kind of sources do you respect when that new editor comes in?
So again, we're looking for good secondary sources. So we prefer published sources, but you can also use primary sources as well. Things that have been published by reputable presses, or even reputable blogs and sources like that. We do discourage using Wikipedia only because Wikipedia is changed. You can change it, so then sometimes that original source isn't there anymore. And again, we respect Wikipedia and what it does, and I've done projects with Wikipedia in the past, but it's just because it's subject to change, it's not a static source like a book. We do discourage use from citing it, but yes, essentially anything that has credibility to
So a
it.
local newspaper, for instance?
Yes, a local newspaper
Yeah.
could work, yes.
Institutional organization account.
Yes.
We can link, if we find there's a whole bunch of individual things already out there, we can link those in and not have to recreate them, or,
Like the individual entries?
yeah, we find like there's 10 individual entries existing in Romney, and the institutional account capture a link to those.
Sure, so I can,
There's actually 2 for Indian Mountain Cemetery.
2 different ones?
Yeah.
like a duplicate one perhaps? Sometimes
They're
I
not
have-
identical. The first one's called Indian Mountain Cemetery, and the second one's called Indian Burial Mountain Cemetery.
Oh, okay. So sometimes we do have things like that. If you do have a duplicate, you can report an entry and just put a message that says there's a duplicate one, and someone at CLIO can usually merge the 2 together, or sometimes just delete it all together. Sometimes those things
There may
slip
actually
through.
be 2 locations,
Or there might be.
because there's
two
the Indian Mountain
locations.
Cemetery, but it seems like there's another place over the hill,
There's
down
one
the hill.
without
But anyway, not to digress.
Okay.
Yeah, so but we can, as an institutional one where we're trying to develop as a group, we can find existing individual ones and link to them or pull them in or something,
Absolutely.
so we don't have to recreate them.
Yes, and so for example, I was looking at some of the entries earlier this week, and I didn't make any changes to them, only because I thought that it would be, I could show you what they look like now and perhaps how you can expand upon them. So for example, this is the entry currently about Literary Hall, so it's in there. It can drive people to this site, but there are some places where we can expand upon.
Is it
Um,
trying to say that those white arrow things is the Literary Hall?
No,
No,
that's
that's
your
part
Oh,
of
that's
your
okay, 'cause that's
Google
not-
map.
It gives you a
Yeah.
360 view.
Because that's the little, that's it, actually.
Yes, and so I can actually show you how you can change that. So this is the Google Maps.
Oh, yeah,
This is the Google Street View.
okay.
And so you can change it, and once you go into edit the entry, you can actually adjust that. That's a really great point to bring up. Thank you for reminding me about that. So I'll just quickly show you what they have here. So I think there's room to expand upon the history of the site. Actually, Wikipedia says that the Wikipedia entry on the Romney Literary Society is listed as one of the best, like the top Wikipedia entry. So you've got a lot to expand upon in something like CLIO as well, where that entry is going to be really lengthy and provide a lot of detail. Here you can provide something that's nice and concise, but still really rich in the history, and provide links to sources. There aren't any links right now, but they do have sources, like National Register of Historic Places is a great source to cite, and I often link that in the entry too, because I like to look through the actual form, and so someone could click on it and see the building drawings and things like that if they're interested. So when you log into CLIO, you will get these little buttons at the bottom that allow you to improve the entry. And so here it says that the location was created on this date. And so this looks like it was created as part of a university project. A lot of professors use CLIO in their classrooms, so it looks like this may be perhaps a student, and you would go in to improve the entry, and this is what the entry looks like from behind the scenes, how you can edit it. So you just,
Sorry, go back and show us where you clicked to open that page.
sure. So this is the top of the entry. You would just scroll down
Okay.
to the bottom, and it's this improve this entry.
Okay.
You would click here. The short overview, the longer backstory is here. Now, I also do recommend when you're actually writing and researching the entries, just to create a Word document and type them and perfect them there,
Yeah.
because that has like the better spell check and grammar check. It also saves things sometimes more reliably, and I find it's
Oh, do that.
for my process of creating the entries, I like doing the research in my Word document, gathering all the sources, and doing it just like I do for a paper or a exhibit that I would be working on. And then I think of this like entering everything into CLIO, and this is just the publishing phase. So then I just copy and paste the text into the document or into CLIO. Sometimes do a little bit of formatting. And then add some of this other information too, like you can add tags. So this is a nice way to help people find the site. You can search by tag. Click, this is on the National Register of Historic Places. Sources, this is that citation helper.
Do you have tags that are used throughout the whole national system? In CLIO?
Yes.
You've agreed on tags, like you have them up there.
Yes, yes.
Not just by state or whatever.
Yes, we have just the ones that are there.
Wow.
I'm hoping we can add more soon, so you can't just add your own tags.
Sure.
But they are pretty broad, as
Yeah.
you can see. So if somebody's interested in literature and poetry and they're traveling around West Virginia, they would be driven to this entry because it's tagged with that. Now with the Google Street View, this was a really good thing to bring up. So sometimes Google Street View just doesn't find the address
Yeah,
perfectly.
right.
So what you can do is you can actually move it like this. I would say like this would probably be the best one. I could even zoom in a little bit here. And then if I keep it like this and save it, it should stay in that image. Because that's something that people will actually see in the app too.
You don't do that on Google
That's
Maps, though.
interesting.
You do it on CLIO, right?
Yes, yes. So
Google Maps is different. You're going to try to change it directly.
right. So we're integrated with Google Maps, but you don't have to go to a separate
Now, of
website
course,
and
there's
change
Waze,
it.
W-A-Z-E, that Google
Yes.
owns now. And of course, they interact, of course.
Okay.
But you can do Waze if you reach out to a certain credibility as an editor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that one, but
That was done by somebody else a few years ago. Google bought it.
okay.
It's where, it's around the world. They actually change maps everywhere in the world. It's the most up-to-date in the
Okay.
world because they have a rigorous system to be editing it.
I
Yeah,
see.
it's nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
And for
that's good to
avoiding
know.
traffic accidents, whatever, it's very good.
Okay.
W-A-Z-E.
Okay, yes, I'll have to check it out. So like your CLIO entry would not go into Google Maps. If you wanted something to actually go into Google Maps, like when somebody searches, you would have to do that separately.
Yeah.
But we just use Google's system, and that allows us to specifically identify a location.
Wow.
So there's a couple things you could do. You could even pick up and move this little star pin. Because sometimes if you were to type in an address, Google just doesn't know exactly where you're talking about.
Especially
And
here.
so you could
We barely know.
adjust this and really perfect it. Now, you might be working with sites that don't have access to the Google Street View. That's where the little Google car drives around and takes all of these pictures. A lot of country roads don't have Google Street View. So what you can just do is uncheck this box right there,
Which box?
this little one right
Right there
here.
with the picture.
If you unclick it, it disables the Google Street View. So then that instead of having a black box that's empty because there's no picture, that box just entirely disappears. So that's nice just to kind of clean up the entry. It's a
Right.
nice sort of finishing touch. But here you actually have the Google Street View, which is really nice. And we do have some of the videos linked here. So like, oh, I don't really know exactly how to cite my sources and what to do. You can go and watch our videos.
Wow.
That's nice.
May I ask,
Yes.
how do you link up with other people that are showing similar interest to you?
How do you mean?
How do you link up with other people who are using CLIO and you want to get in touch with them?
Well, if you're editing in CLIO, like if you have an account, you can go in and edit your own account. So that's also something that I did was I logged into my CLIO account and I can show you what it looks like. So you can create a little profile, and I have my email address here, so here, so if somebody wants to contact
You
me.
can make a request
It-
for contact?
You could just email them directly, right? We are hoping that we can have it be a little more interactive, almost kind of like have a social media kind of component to it where,
Tricky, I know.
Or a forum,
Yes.
some kind of forum, where you could, where
You
people,
don't want to have, commercial interests going after you.
right. But it would be nice for us to have a way to, reach out to some stranger who's working on the Century and provide them with advice or ask them for advice or figure out a way to collaborate together. We're working on that, and we are making adjustments to the website. So you might go on it sometime and find that something looks a little different, and we are constantly improving. A lot of our funding comes through grants, and so some of those grants are for making internal improvements to the website. And even if you find some sort of bug in the website, like sometimes you upload an image and then it crashes or something like that, you can contact us and let us know. Because again, we're a small organization, but we work with an outside tech organization based in Huntington that does the coding and manages everything on the back end that I can't even fathom how all that works. But if you have questions, or even if you have suggestions, like, oh, this feature would be really nice, and it would really help us be able to communicate better, like, let us know. We're always interested in outside ideas. So this is kind of what your behind the scenes profile would look like. With your institution accounts, one thing that would be added is another column that lists people's names, so who worked on those individual entries. So,
You do that for each,
pardon?
that's within the organization, CLIO.
Yes, yeah. So this is a way to keep track of your work and what you've done. So the green ones are ones that are really fleshed out. So some of these are still works in progress. Some are ones that I'm just starting to work on. And this is also a nice way to say, like, okay, I have links, I have images for these sources. And then here are the tours at the bottom. So you can see tours that are already created. So for example, I just started working on one for WV's downtown campus. This is what the tour looks like when you click on it on the website. So you have a little description at the top, all the different individual entries, and then you can start your tour. And it has all the information here. And then if I want to edit it, I can just by clicking on this.
Oh, okay.
So if I want to add, say I want to add this entry, I can add it and it automatically updates the map here. I can click it and move it around like this, and that will adjust the route that Google Maps creates. And again, the video really goes into detail about this. When I'm creating a tour, I'm really thinking of the best geographic route that people can take. So that it's not, well, we're gonna walk over here, and then we're gonna walk across town and go back over here. It's
One-way streets and all that, yeah.
yeah, and Google Maps will tell you like where those one-way streets are and things like that. But when I'm visualizing it, if you look at this map here, I want people to go in this direction, and they'll walk over here, and they'll come back around, and they'll end here, fairly close to where they started. So it's almost like a little circle.
You've given us a lot to think about.
I'm sure it is a lot. Do you have any other questions?
There are people who are more knowledgeable. I'm just new to this institution that's here now. It's the beginning institution,
Right.
Romney, but I'm wondering if they have some questions, because I don't know enough to ask.
So I do want to say there are a couple different versions of walking tours in Romney, and we're working on expanding them and building more information on the entries. And I could say it'd be very easy for someone, I always use the word easy. It would be very, someone could sit down and use the existing information and get this really started.
Yeah.
And then we could expand on it and add pictures and things. We have a lot, probably over 40 sites or so in Romney, and history of Romney, and pictures of what used to be somewhere, and
Yeah.
things like that. It would be, we could do something soonish. And then really have bones to work on. We wouldn't have to start from scratch. We have.
That's good, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and even just looking at the entries nearby, there aren't really a lot here, and I know that there is more history than what's in there, so
Yeah.
so you have a nice opportunity to create something really good from the beginning,
Yeah.
where your entries probably won't be edited that much because your entries will already be so good.
Yeah.
So
We could certainly, we need a lot more photos and details and things, but yeah, we could have a good story.
Now, I think what we need to do is, if anybody's really interested in working with this, to let me know, and we'll get together a group and
Well,
try to
you
get
have two
started.
things. You have the people that we know of who are collecting information and or working on the existing walking tours, who probably don't want to sit down at a computer, don't have time, but would be able to provide hard copy
information,
of things and links, and people could then, if there are people who just wanted to enter them and have fun doing that. So,
and you could even, I mean, you can really organize it the best way that you want to. Again, you could have people that are assigned to create certain entries, or you could have somebody that's just going to upload photos to all of the entries. It's really however you want to do it. You can edit it as many times as you want, and CLIO keeps track of all of those edits too. So,
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
We appreciate it.
I have a question, maybe the mayor can answer. Is this project including only within the city limits as defined by the post office? That's where you can see what the city limits are. I suppose it's up to date, right? Or if you're gonna have a walk, you obviously might sometimes want to cross into the county. Are you involving county people in this too? Now, you don't have to be a member of the city, of course, anybody can volunteer.
You mean for the Romney project?
Right, but are you trying to keep your boundaries within the city limits?
Well, this is just a starting point, because we have the buildings and for the murals and all, it's a starting point. I think the murals are sort of the anchor for us, and then the walking
But
tours.
those are within the city limits.
Basically, and then hopefully, we can expand there. Most of us probably aren't Romney residents.
That's true.
Well, I am, but I don't even know what's in it, so I'm new.
Right.
Well, you will learn a lot in a short amount of time. I can see as far as like that CLIO, if we create an institution / organization, that probably should go ahead and have it as like a Hampshire County thing. That would have the Romney tour and the Moorfield tour or whatever, and the whole county.
That's separate institution.
But that's,
Just for the county.
Well, I mean, no, I was, as far as like a
An institutional
coordination
council stuff.
of that CLIO project should be bigger than just Romney.
Right.
But the Romney Romney people project can be focused for that area.
Right, and start to walking tours.
Well, some of the meetings that we've been going to down in Moorfield, they are talking about a grouping of counties in the Potomac Highlands, and setting up tours for the
Well, sure,
whole
there should
area.
be,
And
like
so
you
if
said.
we could have one for Hampshire County,
Yeah.
then Romney could be one piece of Hampshire County.
Yeah.
And that way we could have the institution cover the whole county.
Yeah.
That, the Romney project, we just have started and we just focusing on Romney, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to start with a bigger idea.
Well, so as
For
far
the
as
institution.
CLIO,
history.
So that we can get more people involved in it out of the county.
Yeah,
Is what we maybe should do.
yeah.
Yeah, you can set your organizational account up however you would like. I will quickly just show you where you would go to create that account.
Okay, please.
It's in the top right-hand corner. Here you would click login/register. And so this section is where the administrator would eventually log in, and then all of the collaborators would log in here. But when you register, whoever is going to be kind of overseeing the account, if you have an individual that kind of wants to be at the helm, they can put in their name, email address, the password that they would individually log in with, and then you would click in institution admin. And so these are the historical sites, museums, and then you put in whatever organization name you want. And once you click register, it'll probably take a couple of days. Dr. Sharbridge is a full-time professor, and so he will review your account, see that you are a legitimate organization, and then we'll send you an email with directions of how to set up this special login that you'll all share. So your name would then be, your organization name would then be listed in this big list that then you would click and then type in the group password, and that's one that you'll all be able to then share. So it'll take a few days once you create that first account to hear back from him, but he'll give you PDFs and different documents, so we'll be able to walk you through the process. And if you have additional questions, you can contact me directly too. Does that help give a sense? It can be a little confusing with the login. And
Let me ask you a question about the organization then. Once you have an administrator and they set up that password, then anybody that has that password can log in and participate. You don't-
Yes.
The administrator,
login, but I imagine
The
that
administrator would have to give them.
you'd have to
the
give it to them
you know how
directly.
easy that is to get passed around.
And if by chance, I don't know, we've never had any issues with anything
Right.
going through that's really not good, but
But
then the administrator could delete
But the
entries
administrator
they don't
actually
want.
has to, does the administrator actually have to approve the entry before it's posted?
Yes, they'll
Okay.
approve the entry
The
before.
same as if I'm an individual, you have an administrator that
Right.
approves.
Okay.
Right.
But we would have an administrator would just,
To approve our
hopefully
stuff.
just prove spelling and grammar and fact checking a little or something
Sure.
like that.
Okay.
Yes,
Not-
So that's where you get the security.
Control.
yes.
Yeah.
And then if okay.
Good.
Each entry would then be approved by the administrator. Okay.
Before public.
Some things like free cycle, once they've approved you a few times, they can say that now you don't need to be approved anymore. But probably we don't want to do that. We still want to have each entry approved as.
Yes, that's just kind of how it sets up. Every entry or every edit to the entry does have to be approved.
Yeah.
And we are working on eventually having instructional videos on that, but we don't have it right now. That's where those PDFs that you'll be emailed, they'll look really long and complicated, but it's mostly just screenshots of every click you'll take.
Okay.
And if you just read through those and follow it, you should be able to set things up. But again, if it feels too complicated, just ask me and I can help you get it set up.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so
Thank
much
you
for your
very
time.
much.
I really appreciate it.
You have cards that you can pass around?
I do have some business cards. Thanks.